I thought my family would always protect me, but instead, they chose his lies over my truth. What I didn't know was that one day his own mouth would betray him, and everything would come crashing down. When I was 16, I learned the cruelest lesson of my life. Blood doesn't always mean loyalty. My name is Daniel, and my brother Ethan was 2 years older. If you asked anyone in our neighborhood back then, they'd all tell you the same thing. Ethan was the perfect son. The golden boy, captain of his soccer team, admired by teachers, charming enough to talk himself out of any trouble. Me? I was the opposite. At least that's how my father painted me. He called me the lazy one, the dreamer, the boy who would never amount to anything. And my mom? She'd just sit silently, nodding whenever Dad lectured me, too afraid to take my side. That imbalance wasn't new. It had been there all my life. If Ethan forgot to mow the lawn, Dad laughed and said, "Boys will be boys. But if I forgot, you'll never grow up. You'll end up a failure, Daniel." It felt like no matter what I did, I was always the disappointment, always the scapegoat. Still, I never imagined how far Ethan would go to keep me in that role. It was a Friday night in late November. The house smelled faintly of Mom's stew, and the windows rattled from the cold wind outside. I was in my room, lying on my bed, headphones in, scrolling through my old second-hand phone. Music was my only escape. The rhythm drowned out my dad's constant disapproval, the fake charm of my brother's voice when guests came over, and the suffocating silence that filled the house when things went wrong. But that night, silence was replaced with chaos. The door to my room burst open with a crash that shook the walls. My dad stormed in, his face flushed and twisted with rage. My mom followed close behind, her hands trembling as if she already knew what was coming. And then Ethan appeared in the doorway. His eyes were red and watery, like he'd been crying. But I knew him too well. He wasn't crying, he was acting. "Tell us the truth," my dad thundered. I yanked my headphones out, confused and startled. "What truth?" Ethan stepped forward, his voice shaky enough to sound convincing but steady enough to sell the lie. "He stole Mom's necklace, the gold chain Grandma gave her. I saw him hide it in his drawer." My blood ran cold. My chest tightened. That necklace? My mom's most precious possession? I had never even touched it. Dad didn't hesitate. He stormed to my drawer, ripped it open, and there it was. The necklace, carefully wrapped in one of my socks. My knees nearly buckled beneath me. No, 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 no. That's not mine. I didn't. "Liar!" my dad roared, shoving his face close to mine. His breath smelled of coffee and anger. "You've embarrassed us for the last time. You think I don't know you've been sneaking around, stealing little things?" "I didn't," I shouted, my voice cracking like brittle glass. "He planted it. Ethan planted it. Why would I take something like that?" But it didn't matter. Ethan stood behind them, crocodile tears glistening on his cheeks, his voice just loud enough to be heard. "I don't feel safe around him anymore." Those 6 words cut deeper than any blade. My father's jaw tightened, his hand clamping around my arm like a vice. He dragged me down the hall, ignoring my pleas, ignoring my mother's silent tears. "You need to leave," Mom whispered, not even meeting my eyes. And just like that, the door slammed shut behind me. I was barefoot, wearing only sweatpants and a hoodie, clutching a trash bag my dad had thrown at me with a few clothes inside. The November air stung my skin, and the pavement was ice beneath my feet. Through the curtain, I saw Ethan's face. He smirked, eyes glinting with triumph, and mouthed, "Told you they'd believe me." That was the moment something inside me broke. The weeks that followed were hell. I slept on friends' couches when I could. but couches weren't always available. Some nights, I curled up behind a 24-hour laundromat, the smell of detergent and steam machines keeping me awake. Other nights, I hid under the metal bleachers at school, the cold biting my bones. Hunger was constant. I stretched out dollar snacks for days. Sometimes I drank water just to quiet the growl in my stomach. School wasn't any kinder. Ethan had already spread the story. By Monday morning, whispers followed me like a shadow. Thief, liar, criminal in training. In the cafeteria, a girl scooted her bag away when I sat near her and hissed, "Don't steal my stuff." It was like I didn't exist, except when people wanted to humiliate me. Meanwhile, Ethan shined brighter than ever. He told teachers he tried to protect me, but I went too far. He framed himself as the victim. His teammates admired his strength for enduring me. Teachers praised him for being responsible. And me? I sank lower and lower. One night, about 4 weeks later, I sat outside the laundromat again, clutching my torn trash bag of clothes. My hoodie was damp from the drizzle, my feet numb. I thought about giving up, about walking into the highway and letting the noise of cars drown me forever. That's when I heard it. Laughter. Familiar, cruel laughter. Ethan's. He was walking down the sidewalk with two of his friends, soda in hand, sneakers spotless. His voice carried in the quiet night. Man, it was so easy. I just slipped the necklace into his drawer, and boom, Dad kicked him out. Best decision ever. Finally got rid of him. His friends roared with laughter. My chest tightened so hard I couldn't breathe. But then another voice cut through the air. Ethan. It was Mom's voice. She had been standing behind them, holding a grocery bag. Her face was pale, her eyes wide, her hands trembling. I heard what you just said, she whispered. You planted it? You lied. Ethan froze. His grin vanished. No, Mom. It's not what you think. Don't lie to me, she snapped, her voice shaking but fierce. I heard every word. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered inside me. When we got back home, Dad was waiting in the living room. The silence was thick, broken only by Mom's shaky voice as she told him what she'd heard. First, Dad refused. Ethan would never. But under Mom's relentless gaze, Ethan cracked. His words exploded like venom. Fine. I did it. So what? He deserved it. You always babed him. He was always the mistake. I just gave you a reason to see it. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Dad's face drained of color. And me? I stood there, hollow but vindicated. I looked at them all. My parents who had thrown me out like garbage, my brother who destroyed me for fun, and I spoke with a voice steadier than I felt. You wanted the truth. There it is. But it's too late. You chose his lies over me when it mattered most. And I walked out. Not because I had to this time, but because I wanted to. I never went back. I stayed with a friend's family for months. I worked odd jobs, saved every penny, and eventually scraped enough to rent a tiny room. Years passed. Ethan lost his shine. Without me as his scapegoat, his lies started catching up to him. Teachers saw through his charm. Teammates stopped trusting him. By the time he graduated, he had no scholarships, no prospects. Meanwhile, I found strength in survival. I studied harder than ever, fueled by anger and pain. I earned a scholarship, moved out of state, and built a life for myself. Sometimes, I still think of that night. The necklace, the cold pavement, the smirk behind the curtain. And then I remember the moment Mom overheard the truth. The moment Ethan's mask cracked. That was the night I lost my family. But it was also the night I found myself.